it says the broadcast is live, and so that means class is in session, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to day 2, which you're already in, of Kaiju Masterclass, here streaming on YouTube. And my name is Kyle Yount. I am the host of the Kaiju Cast and another program called Collect All Monsters. And we're going to get that all out of the way right now, and I'm going to move on to Sean Linkenback directly over here to my right. That is not just a pretty face surrounded by beautiful posters, but the author of The Art of Japanese Monsters, and also the unauthorized, oh my gosh, I can't say it right now, Collectible Guide to Godzilla? What was it, Sean?
Sure, that's pretty close. I think it's
without having it next to
Godzilla collectibles, maybe, but something like that.
And then you've seen his name written. You've heard his voice on commentaries. Ed Godziszewski is joining us down from Chicago. How's it going, man? Good to see you.
Just fine, thank you. Good to see you.
And we're going to talk today about the wonderful world of kaiju movie posters. Now, before we get into the actual presentation part, Sean, you want to tell us a little bit about your life in collecting Godzilla posters, kaiju posters, or just collecting?
Collecting is my life. Is that what I'm supposed to say? It's something I've enjoyed for a very long time now. Ever since I picked up my first movie poster back in the 80s, around 1990, I discovered a Japanese poster for Biollante, and that pretty much rocked my world and changed my viewpoint of, wow, there's even more out there to get, and it hasn't stopped. But unfortunately, there's even this many years later, there's still more.
It's never ending.
It really is never ending, but it's a lot of fun to figure out what's out there, seeing what's come before, look forward to the things that are coming up, and just enjoy the collecting of trying to figure out what you want to get next and what you want to go for next, and hoping that it becomes available really more than anything.
Ed, tell me a little bit about your journey, specifically like to posters too, because I know that you also have a lot.
Yeah, well, in my case, as a kid growing up in the 60s, all I could do every week when I'd be going to movie theaters, be looking at these posters and lobby cards, things like that at the theater, and thinking, wow, it would be really cool to have some stuff like that. But I never in my wildest dreams imagined you could get things like that. And I think it was in 74 or 75 when I saw an issue of Monster Times, and there was an ad for the Cinema Attic. And that was the first place I found it sold things, and that was what started me on this long path of collecting movie posters, stills, lobby cards, etc. And then fortunately, having a chance to visit Japan in first time in 79 and meeting people there who eventually would hook me up with either posters or places where I could buy them. That just kind of started me on the way, and it's something that you just never let up trying to pursue. It's it's simultaneously much easier and much harder to do that these days. There's so much online, but at the same time, the physical stores and the places you go to inspect things and make those wonderful unexpected finds, those places unfortunately are slowly disappearing bit by bit.
It should be noted for the people watching that might not be familiar, Ed specifically has been a huge influence to me in terms of just getting me over to Japan. Like years ago when we sat down for dinner, I was like, hey, how many times do you go to Japan in a year, man? And he was like, a couple at least, or something like that. And it really has inspired me now. I finally hit my 2 trips in 1 year mark. And I have also noted that a lot of the shops, not just toy shops, but just shops in general that have been around in the past are slowly, like, some of them are fading away. It's really getting kind of a bummer over there. But let's talk a little bit about why we're here. The industry of posters. I'm going to go ahead and share my application window for our behind the scenes crew. And hopefully that'll show up anytime now.
Well, while you're saying that, I'll say that Ed was instrumental for me also. He met me in Japan during my first trip in the early 90s, and showed me all the sites. And I don't think I would have made it to half the stores that he took me to, because they would have been impossible to find if you were trying to go by yourself in the pre-Google Maps or MapQuest days.
Yes.
All right, so let's get started with this little presentation. Have a little primer for the viewers out there. Obviously, Ed and Sean, they already know all this stuff in spades, and they have contributed quite a bit to it. But this is a little presentation I put together for Collectible Monsters. And then with Sean's help, we sort of beefed it up and made it sort of like a 2.0. So here we go. The Art of Kaiju Eiga promotion. Clearly, Kaiju movie posters are things of beauty. And the two people on screen here with me are also in love with this avenue of collecting, this avenue of the genre. We're going to talk about a few things here. We're going to have a little introduction about Kaiju posters. We're going to have a deep dive into the sizing and the sizing and more of Japanese posters specifically. We're going to talk about lobby cards and press kits, and then if there's time, acquisition. We got a lot to cover. It is a really big world, so let's start with a couple of little tidbits of information. If you did not know, Japan has a really rich history in cinema. Cinema was huge in Japan for many, 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 many years. And here in Hiroshima, here's a whole bunch of movie houses. The theaters were popular enough to pack entertainment districts. And this is not just theaters, like movie theaters, but also places to see live performances as well in Asakusa, Tokyo. Clearly, Godzilla movie posters are some of the earliest Godzilla collectibles, right?
Absolutely.
And if you didn't know this, people watching, movie posters are not sold to the general public over there. At least they used to not be. And they're really only produced for the theaters. And so there were no Suncoast or FYE stores that you could go flip through their poster rack. If you wanted something, you actually had to track it down from an actual theater. This is just something I threw in here for a little sidebar, just something really, really kind of cool. Have either of you guys been to the Yokohama Ramen Museum?
No.
I have not either, but apparently they have this cool courtyard that's been built up as a facade with lots and lots of ramen shops, and then they have a ton of movie posters on display, and some of them are Kaiju related. That I guess the owner or somebody has a fascination for the Mysterians.
Who doesn't?
Exactly. Who doesn't?
And I think this place predates the Kodansha sets, so I don't know if this is an original 3-sheet poster or what, Sean, but
that it would be a countryside 3-sheet. It's different than the well-known 3-sheet that was made for the movie, for sure, but it certainly looks real.
All right, knowledge drop number 1. Hit that bell, and we'll move on to this topic. This topic is huge, right? So look at all these posters. Look at these crazy divergent posters. This is all from one film. All of these movies, all of these posters are from one movie, Invasion of Astro Monster. Actually, before I move on, you can see in there, you've got the international poster, you've got Italy, Poland, Belgium, all sorts of things. All sorts of countries love to show Godzilla movies, and their posters, we'll go into some really cool foreign posters later, but we'll start with Japan. And please take note of the different sizes and styles that we have here. Because there's a little bit of a rhyme or reason to how this works, and I'll just go through this as quickly as I can so that we can get to the cooler stuff. You take that large poster, your sort of standard, almost 27-inch by 40-inch almost poster of the B1, and that's sort of like what we're just going to go with as the standard. Now you take that poster, that is a 20, so like I said, it's like almost 27 by 40.
It's almost the same size as a US 1-sheet that you would see at the cinemas when you go now.
Yes, thank you. Now you take that poster, cut it in half, and you're going to get the next poster size when you flip it on its side, and that is the B2, which is, again, half the size of that poster. Now the B3, you cut that B2 in half, and that turns into the B3 poster. I'm not very familiar with the B3 poster size, but Sean wanted to include it in here.
The B3 posters are mainly used for subway cars. They're mostly called Nakazuri posters, and they're displayed in trains, which, of course, if you've been to Japan, you know trains are everywhere, and you see the little advertisements in the trains everywhere. So they're not
Absolutely.
quite as used as much as they used to be, but they were a very popular format, and you will always see that size in the train cars for sure.
Now, the first two poster sizes, B1, B2, those are the ones you're going to see in the theater. Or as when I lived over there, I saw the B2 size plastered on like walls and stuff like that. Like especially where there was like a construction area. Like King Kong Lives came out when I lived there, and King Kong 2 posters were like all the way down the street sometimes on some of the construction areas.
Absolutely, the B2 posters will be used for wilding a lot more than the B1 sizes. The B1 sizes are probably the toughest size of the standard posters to find, both for resale and then display in the theaters now. The B2 is the most common size that they use everywhere in the theaters and outside on display.
All right, so now let's go back to the B2, talk about the very next size, and that is we're going to talk about the Tateken, which you take two B2s, stack them on top of each other, and then you've got the Tateken, which I was not very familiar with this style of poster, the tall, skinny poster, but over the years, the designs behind these have sort of become my favorites.
So these were used, they're also called standing board posters sometimes because they were made to stand on boards outside of the theater. These were used outdoor almost exclusively. They were put on sidewalks to attract passerbys, and they became such distractions that they actually stopped making them in the mid-70s. They started passing local ordinances and stuff to take them down and have them stop cluttering up the sidewalks. So this size poster, the Tateken, there will be one for the first Godzilla movie, and they made them all the way up through the 70s. But once we get into the 80s and later, that size is not used.
Awesome. Great information. So this, like I said, just two B2s stacked on top of each other. If anybody ever wants to use this for this video for measurements, please feel free to come back and pause it here. And if anybody needs these measurements, maybe we can get them put into the show notes of this video as well. Now we'll talk about the next size, which is very similar to the Tateken, but you take the B2, instead of stacking it on top of each other, you split it in half vertically, and that becomes the Speed poster. And that size, again, half vertically of the B2. This is definitely one of my favorite styles because it's compact, and that vertical, tall, skinny look is just really beautiful. Now, there's another size that I didn't even learn about until very recently, and that is the 3 sheet. So you take that B1 and triple it, and you've got yourself the Japanese 3 sheet. And this is a gorgeous Monster Zero or Invasion of Astro Monster 3 sheet. You guys have any 3 sheets in your collections?
Oh, Sean has many.
Yeah, I have several.
Somebody mentioned that in one of our last episodes, I think it was when I was talking about the posters, that the 3 sheets, they don't come connected, correct? No. Yeah. They're literally 3 separate posters.
Oddly enough.
Yeah.
They really are 3 separate posters. Even the Kodansha made some reprints that were available for bonuses from the DVD sets a couple of years ago. They included reprints of King Kong versus Godzilla, Mothra versus Godzilla, and Ghidorah. And even those were made in 3 separate sections. They were much thinner paper, and the print quality was obviously not nearly as good as the original. Mm-hmm. But even those, they just went ahead and printed them up as 3 separate sheets.
Yeah, I think that those are actually larger than 3 B1s, aren't they, Sean?
Each panel on that, they're slightly larger because each one includes a little bit of a blank white border, so you can glue it to the next sheet.
Yeah,
nice.
And I think there actually is one more size, is the B0.
There is a B0. We didn't picture that one.
Yeah, because at least I mean, not like I have a lot of B0s, but I do have a couple.
Yes.
And know that they are. I think basically it's like double the size of the B1.
Correct. We can
at
the end of the slideshow we could throw one up. They're usually put side by side, so it would be, but it's going to depend on the title.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. So let's talk about some foreign kaiju posters. These all came from Sean over the weekend or over the week. I'm going to let you guys take the floor for a minute because I remember, Ed, you specifically brought up the Taiwan Godzilla versus Biollante poster.
It's one of my favorites. I mean, I know everybody's got a little different idea what they like the best in a poster, and I personally like this style of artwork. Artwork composition for foreign posts, especially for foreign posters. Japanese are quite good at making the photo composites, but you find the most interesting artwork in foreign posters, especially Taiwan. Thailand is another place that has a lot of interesting artwork. And since Biollante got such a limited release worldwide, I mean, this was quite a find. Sean was the first one to track one of these down. And it's a really dynamic image, and I really like the artwork style on that particular one.
I'll agree with everything he just said.
And of course, if we're talking about foreign posters, we have to talk about Poland and their very, very cool style. Very out there. Definitely, Sean, your collectible book, when I picked that up back in the 90s, that was the first time I saw any foreign Godzilla posters. And that Hedorah poster specifically, man, I would imagine that if you were to find one of those an original, it would go for quite a bit.
I haven't seen one for sale in a while, but I would imagine it's starting to get up there. The Polish poster for the first Godzilla movie is probably still my favorite Polish poster, but there's no doubt that the composition on the Hedorah is probably makes it the best artistic poster. If I can say that without sounding contradictory, it's a great design, it's a great layout. It's a really, really nice poster.
Yeah,
you could probably put together a full presentation on foreign posters and have a massive section just on Poland.
Yeah, in fact, we can give a little apology right here because we're limited to an hour. We've got 60 years of history and well over 60 movies. We can't cover everything or every country. There's so much incredible stuff. We just can't possibly even get close to showing enough. So hopefully we'll show some things that will just be interesting for everybody.
Yeah, and if you like surreal posters, Poland is the place for you.
For sure.
Yes.
I've never actually seen any posters from the Middle East before, so tell me a little bit about Iran and Lebanon and their poster fascinations, Sean.
It's great, isn't it? Bloodthirsty Hawk is just about the best title you could ever have for a Rodin. And of course they don't show them on top of the building, but they show key scenes from the film right there. It's an outstanding poster. A friend of mine, obviously they've taken this from some Chinese imaging, and a friend of mine told me that the title on there is actually backwards, so they reversed the photo when they put it on there, and they've got the kanji there going backwards on it. The Destroy All Monsters poster, I wasn't even sure that was actually Destroy All Monsters when it was first offered to me, because obviously it doesn't have any telltale signs of Destroy All Monsters on it anywhere. In fact, some of the imaging of the people running at the beginning, at the bottom of the poster, is actually cut from a Great Escape movie poster. If you have ever seen the Great Escape US one sheet, that imaging right there is basically taken from that poster. But this is a mix-up. You've got Godzilla from Mechagodzilla. You've obviously got a Godzilla's Revenge, Gabara Minya fighting in there. You've got the Anguillus from Mechagodzilla. So it's a mix-up of several different pieces, but it actually is for Destroy All Monsters. The title is Destroy All Monsters, and the credits are correct on there for Honda and the other actors, and was able to double-check and verify the Arabic title that's on it. So I felt confident and that it was actually for Destroy All Monsters and labeling it that way. But I'm where did it come from? When obviously they showed it there in the mid 70s or later. Is that actually a first release for Destroy All Monsters in Iran? I'm not positive, but I wouldn't be surprised. But just a really unique and wacky poster.
Yes. Wacky indeed. Let's talk about some Italian kaiju posters, man. They got a great gimmick behind the Italian posters we're going to talk about.
They did. Well, the first one here, we have to show that when they get it right, they get it really, really right. This is just a fantastic poster. This particular size right here, it's hard to see the scale on it, but this is an Italian 4-folio. This is size is 55 by 79. So it's 4.5 feet by 6 feet, 6.5 feet. It's a very large and impressive poster. The print on it's just beautiful. It's a great piece of artwork by Nistri, who's one of the top Italian poster designers. And it's just a beautiful piece of art. But as we will see in just a second, they didn't always stick to the titles and or the correct labeling. So I've pulled these as two great examples. I'm sure these are Ed's favorites right here. If we didn't label them, there was probably be no way that you could actually tell what these posters are for.
Well, probably Destroy All Monsters you could, because they actually listed at least 3 out of 4 of the, or 2 out of 4 of the actual actors in the film, and they credit Honda. So at least kind of have an idea it might be that.
Yes, if you actually know that Andrew Hughes is in Destroy All Monsters, that's an extra bonus point for you. But he actually is. Now, is he the lead actor in Destroy All Monsters? Not so sure. But this just the Italians tend to try to add a couple of more American-sounding names, I guess, to their posters. Mm-hmm. And of course, this particular Destroy All Monsters is for a 76, 77 re-release. So we get a De Laurentiis style Kong in there, because why wouldn't you want to capitalize on the success of that movie and pretend that Destroy All Monsters has something to do with that, because the 11 monsters in there aren't good enough alone, I guess. And then same thing for the Sea Monster. That's also late 70s re-release. So you might as well tie it in with King Kong somehow. And of course, who doesn't want a train on their poster? My kids would love that, because they would be extra happy that there's a train there. And you've got the American military attacking the Godzilla Kong and a blonde, which are all things that we remember very well about Sea Monster.
A lot of trains in there.
Yes.
I just love so much how it's clearly says the return of Godzilla at the top, and it's just King Kong. And yeah, that train scene in the Sea Monster was choice.
It's the best, isn't it?
But they kept the right people's names on the poster, which is unusual for Italy, because they're one of the
and especially for a re-release from Italy, it was very unusual.
Yeah, they're one of the biggest offenders of changing the credits on films.
Yes. As we will see on the next slide.
Yes.
These are two of Ed's favorites for sure. We again, if you didn't label the titles on these slides, dollars to donuts, you could not guess what movie these actually were. You might be able to guess Gamera because you see Carl Crane and you go, I think I know who that is. But both of these movies were directed by the great Terrence Flash, who is a very notable Gamera director, at least in Italy. And of course, Virus may or may not have Ghidorah in it. I can only imagine the designers there at the distribution place are going, hey, we've got this artwork laying over from Monster Zero. Should we just throw that onto the poster too? Absolutely. Put it in
Bring
there.
over the scissors. Yeah.
No one will notice.
And same thing for Giron. It's like, well, it was so successful that we had Ghidorah in that Virus movie that let's put him again in Giron. So we'll put him in the background of that. And let's also, of course, make sure that we get King Kong in there, because nothing sells a movie like having King Kong and Godzilla in the title.
If that's even King Kong.
If that's even King Kong is a good point.
Mighty Peking Man.
True.
Yeah.
Who is Christopher Murphy? Anyway.
You're obviously not very familiar with Gamera films, Kyle.
All right. I just can't remember all the kids' names. All right. So French kaiju posters moving along. We've got some gorgeous artwork, even though some of it's a little bewildering. This planet, the invasion of Astro Monster is amazing.
Yeah. I'll let Ed loves that one. I'll let him talk about it.
Well, I mean, yeah. Fortunately, one of the few posters for this film that actually features King Ghidorah. Really nice, even though it's a little bit off color, but you got the good panic scene, and again, just original art. Features some of the mechanics from the film too. No credits, at least not that are visible. So it's easy to disguise the fact that it's a Japanese film, which, again, is often the case of what at least the European distributors are always trying to do, either disguise it or just plain, lie as to who the people were that made it. The Destroy All Monsters artwork, I mean, this one I've actually seen from a number of countries. But this particular one, this is, it's printed on that old, what do you call that, Sean? The stone printing?
Stone litho? Well, yeah. This is an offset litho, but it is very close to a stone litho. The colors on it, it's a great litho. The colors on it really pop when you see it on the paper, especially the paper stock that they used. This, and again, that's correct. This image was used also for the Italian and the Belgian posters releases. It's interesting because the image that they use for Godzilla here, and him holding the woman, is actually taken from an American comic book. It's taken from the Turok series from Gold Key at the time. So the artist obviously saw that a Turok cover and used that as his inspiration for this. And this is an original release poster from the 60s, even though it incorporates Kong. So even then, they were still trying to capitalize on getting Kong in there a little bit. And we can see that once again, Andrew Hughes figures mightily in the credits there.
He had such a big role.
As long as you got a Western name, you can throw in there.
Yeah, totally. And then, trailing off with France, the third poster here is very beautiful War of the Gargantuas poster. Are these painted by the same guy, Sean? Do you know about
these? This is the same artist as the Destroy All Monsters poster, and of course, since you're putting me on the spot, I cannot remember his name right now. But I'll dig it up and I'll put it in the comments for the people that watch it afterwards. But yes, and this is an original release. Again, this is a large poster. It's 47 by 63, so almost 4 feet by 5 feet.
Wow.
And it's just a beautiful piece of art that uses a key image from Gargantuas. And then, of course, we have to stick on the end here. Another one of Ed's favorites is this montage. You probably remember most of these scenes in Godzilla 84.
Yes, especially the decapitated figure at the bottom of the poster. I mean, that's a very famous scene.
And it really is great.
Yeah, Godzilla eating a human.
Oh man, this actually, we should have put this in its own zoomable window so we could just zoom into all the different parts. But all the lightning, I mean, come on, that's exactly what it was like when he woke up. Yeah. There's something really raw and entertaining about this. This adaptation of Return of Godzilla for this poster, though. Yeah, it's weird.
Yes.
I could stare at it for hours. Let's not do that. Let's move along, and let's. Hopefully this is where you wanted to put this, Sean. Basically, we needed to give honorable mention to one of the painters of one of the series of posters from Japan. You want to talk a little bit about Noriyoshi Orai?
Ed can handle this.
Okay. Well, he's a very famous illustrator out of Japan. You can buy various different books of his art, and they're all amazing. He's got a very distinctive style and use of primary colors. Well, these are not Orai. Okay.
Sorry.
Back to Orai. And Toho hired him to do the paintings for the Heisei series films. Produced memorable images for every single one that he worked on, and if you saw it, I've been to a couple of displays of his artwork in Japan, and they've had the originals of these particular items on display, and they're really huge, and as beautiful as they look when they're printed up as a poster, they're doubly breathtaking when you see them in person, and you can see all the brush strokes and see how vivid the colors are. The way they're put together is just astonishing, and Toho basically got these things for a song. I think that his rate for doing each one of these paintings was something about the equivalent of $10,000, and Toho owns the paintings, and they can pretty much do with them as they please. They got their money's worth 100 times over. And unfortunately, sometimes the best part of the best feature of some of these '90s films happens to be the art on the poster.
They're each RI poster is just incredible. They're incredible to see on screen. They're incredible to see up close. There's just beautiful pieces of art. I will mention, as I'm staring here at that King Ghidorah art in the middle, that is probably the most reprinted and certainly one of the most requested pieces of artwork from him in posters. And I will just give a reminder that the original poster for that was only available in a B1 size. Yes. Any B2 size poster you see for that film using that artwork is a reprint, possibly authorized by Toho, possibly not. But no original theatrical poster was made in the B2 size using that artwork. Correct. The other one, the Godzilla 84, would be the same. That was only available as the B1. The later issues, Violante, Destroyer, and things like that were available in the B2 size with his artwork and can be original theatrical posters. But the King Ghidorah and the Godzilla 84 are only available as B1 posters.
The people who are watching live, by the way, are they always, I'm sure, will praise Orai. His stuff is amazing, but yeah, they're definitely loving Orai's posters, and he is a very iconic artist for the Godzilla series because he did stuff. Let's see, he did posters for 84 through the rest of the 90s series, and then his last poster was Megaguirus, right? Or did he actually do that Final Wars poster?
Yeah, he did. Final Wars.
Didn't he do that Final Wars where Godzilla's turning around? Or was he done by then?
I think he did one of the Final Wars.
Yeah.
I don't think he did both.
Cool, but so he did all the way onto the end of the.
But he did not do GMK. Series.
Right, and that's that was on the next slide.
Yeah.
We have other artists,
which is also a great poster. And of course, that Kong is a Yuji Sakai poster.
Yuji Kaida.
No, Yuji Kaida.
I'm sorry, yes. Yes, it's not done by a sculptor. It's done by an actual artist. My apologies.
All right, so there's lots and lots of beautiful posters from Japan, obviously. Some of them are painted. Some of them are photo paste-ups. Here are two examples from the Millennium series, Godzilla versus Megaguirus and Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, specifically.
Yeah, I really like that Ex-Mechagodzilla poster, just the dynamic of the swooping tail and him leaping into the air there. I think it's a really good image.
One of the more dynamic images they came up with for that.
It really is. It's something that you don't think of when any of the other Mechagodzilla poses are always such static poses, and that's such a dynamic, moving image. I think it looks really good.
If I'm not mistaken, that's just computer artwork. Unlike most of the other 2000 posters, which are composite photo, this one I believe is completely a computer generated art.
That would make sense.
Because you never saw Mechagodzilla do that kind of a leap.
In my mind, I see him leaping like that all the time.
And the tail is not that far to make that.
My only complaint with the posters from this series of movies is that they had to add the Hamtaro cartoon, and so this like amazingly cool GMK poster that I have has this strip of Hamtaro cartoon on the bottom of it.
Well, that's probably the only way those movies actually got made, was because they were tied into Hamtaro.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Yeah.
Now, Sean, you wanted to bring up something about the current state of posters. Am I inferring that correctly?
I will. If you can remember all the way back when we showed that first Monster Zero slide that showed posters from all over the world, we had different images, different artists' interpretations on the movies. Nowadays, it's pretty much tied to one piece or two pieces of key art, and every territory that shows the movie is required to use this artwork. So we get very little differences in the countries anymore. China had a couple of pieces that they used on pyramid posters that were different than this. They had several that were just digital images that they used to promote the movie. but France, Italy, everywhere else that this movie was released, all use the same art. And as is typical in Hollywood these days, posters are blue or kind of a fuzzy pinkish orange color, and we got blue. I mean, if you look at Hollywood posters nowadays, you'll see that probably 70 to 80% of every poster you see is going to have this color blue predominant on the poster. So their marketing tells you that this is the most pleasing color and image, I guess, to people in the theaters.
The focus group has told us that this is definitely the way to go with posters. Now, I
Unfortunately,
actually really love the Chinese stuff that they did.
The Chinese did make a couple of great images, and it's just really unfortunate that we're in a system now that stifles the creativity of artists that we used to see. And that's why so much of our presentation focused on the older art. This is it. I mean, this is the same image that you saw for every country that released this movie. So there's not much variation anymore.
All right. And then this is the last slide I think I have from you, Sean.
Yeah, this is one of the last different pieces of artwork that was used. It wasn't the official Toho approved artwork that they released with their movie. And that was for Godzilla 2000, of course, and a great piece of art, Orga in the background there, and a dynamic pose of Godzilla.
You had this in the background the other day, like on your wall, right?
I did. I don't have it on the wall. That was a different wall.
Different wall, different presentation. It's all good. All right. Okay. So now we're going to move on to lobby cards. This is an area where I'm definitely going to let these guys talk because I don't know anything about lobby cards except they look cool. So why don't we start off with this Godzilla set, the King of the Monsters set?
So I'll take the first pitch here. Lobby cards were originally produced starting in the 19-teens for movies. The U.S. has standardized their sets at 8. A few early releases in the teens and 20s for the U.S. might have had more, and some countries will have more than 8 in their sets. Germany especially is notorious for having 18, 20, 24 images sometimes in their sets. The early Japanese sets from Toho originally had 10 cards, and then by the time of Sea Monster, they went down to 8, and that was pretty much their standard. The first couple of Daiei sets actually had 12 cards for the first camera set and the first Majin set, but then they also quickly got down to 8, and that has been the standard. The lobby cards themselves are much smaller than the regular size posters. They're almost universally 11 by 14. And of course, some countries are going to have something slightly different than that. But for Japan and America, they're 11 by 14. And they allow you to have images that aren't on the original poster art. So for the Godzilla set, like in the US, we have a neat artistic interpretation of Godzilla for the one sheet. But having this lobby set allows us to have the classic train image that is probably the most iconic image of Godzilla, at least from the Showa area. And we get a great card that has Raymond Burr. We get a card that has Godzilla breathing fire. We got him in the water. So it's just able to get a bunch of different representations of the movies. And because of that, they're one of my favorite things to collect because you get such a great variety of scenes and images from the films.
I love how this one here, which I don't know if the people are going to be able to see me sort of like moving the mouse around it, but this one is Serizawa carrying Emiko up a stairwell, which didn't really happen in the movie that we saw. So, and another cool thing about lobby cards is sometimes they include additional imagery.
Correct. I left some cut images in there because most of the lobby cards are put together from images that are taken on set or paste ups that the publicity department has made during the production of the film. So they're produced ahead of time, and the publicity departments don't quite know which scenes are going to make the final cut or not. So you will tend sometimes to see some scenes that aren't in the final film.
Yeah, what I like most about lobby cards is, one, they basically are large-sized stills, and myself, I particularly love collecting still images from these films because they're actually, little, in most cases, little snippets from the actual film itself, not this Destroy All Monsters one in this particular case.
No, but the King Kong versus Godzilla that was on that last slide is, that might be the second most famous image of Godzilla from the Showa area. And so the American U.S. poster is interesting, but it's not that image, and that's the best image right there.
Yeah.
So.
And in the case of at least American lobby cards, you get the extra bonus of getting some of the, not only the film's logo, but you often get a little bit of the poster art that also borders the image. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get a still, you get the tagline for the film and the title, and sometimes some of the artwork from the poster. So they really are one of the most attractive things for me to collect. And even in the case of foreign sets, often they don't have that extra imagery on the card, but nevertheless they're still oversized stills, and especially in foreign sets, you get to see a lot of photos that you ordinarily don't see anywhere else.
Now I'd put these two on the screen just in case Sean or Ed, either of you guys wanted to talk about like maybe the differences between American and Japanese lobby cards. But if we want to move on, we can do that too.
No, this is a great example, because here's the famous scene from famous image from Destroy All Monsters, your group shot, and just I look at the U.S. card from that, and that is, I guess technically that is the best card from the set because it has the most monsters, but it's pretty cringeworthy when you have it in the same shot with the original Japanese card. when I look at the U.S. set and I see just that card, I'm like, oh, that's a great card. And now you have it on screen with the Japanese one. I'm like, oh man, that's just so horrible. Couldn't they have done anything with that?
Well, it's all a matter of what they select to use as images for the cards. This is not the best image to pick.
And then just a smattering of other lobby cards. I'm a huge fan of the design of the monster Varan, and I absolutely love that the lobby cards colorized him green.
Well, most monsters are green, Kyle. I don't know if you know that, but that's a fact. I love the Gorath image I picked because the one sheet, again, in the U.S. for that film is kind of boring. It shows mainly the artwork you see on the side right there of a man floating out in space. But here on this lobby card, we get the best shot. You got the money shot because you got Gorath and you've got the Jax with the ship right there in front of it. So what a great image that is from that film.
And Mothra's the classic title card. Not all lobby sets have a title card, but the title card usually is just the poster image rearranged in a horizontal format. And this Mothra one's a really good example of that.
Yep. Absolutely.
And the framework looks really familiar to this presentation.
Yeah.
Good pick.
Here's some Japanese lobby cards. I love these because they're vertical as opposed to the horizontal, the landscape style.
Yeah, nice style. So you got a poster size are set up on the lobby cards. The Giron card there is absolutely one of my favorite cards ever. It shows, even though I'm not a huge camera person, but it shows the pure evilness of Giron, that he just sliced Gaius' wing right off without a care in the world, before slicing his head off, of course. And a great promotional art image from Atragon there, showing Manda and the sub.
That one's interesting because it's painted instead of a paste up, really.
Yeah, it's a Kamatsuzaki painting.
Yeah.
And some more, of course, from a variety of kaiju films here.
Yes. Yeah, Warning from Space is the first color Japanese science fiction film, and we were lucky enough that we got a color lobby set from that. It's actually the first Japanese lobby set for a genre film. So, and what a great image that is there. Of course, classic War of the Gargantua scene with the octopus and your very colorful Titanosaurus, and a scene that you probably don't remember seeing in Frankenstein Conquers the World, but just again, some artistic license there that the publicity department was using at the time.
Yeah, and War of the Gargantuas that's basically an international set, isn't it? Because
that one is, and it uses the exact same stills and artwork that were used in the Japanese set, but they would take it and basically just take out the plate with the Japanese writing and put in the English title.
But it's a set that's issued by Toho, so it's based. I would always consider it as a Japanese set. Just
right. It was made in Japan. It was printed in Japan, so I had no problem considering that a Japanese set, just the international.
All right, so tell us a little bit about this, the differences between what we're seeing here, Sean.
So again, now these are Italian lobby cards, and they're called photobustas, and the size is quite different than what we have here. This is one of the ones that's not standardized to 11 by 14. Most of these are close to US half sheet size. They're about 18 by 24, 25. They'll vary slightly depending on what decade they were produced in, but they're much larger than US or Japanese lobby cards. And again, depending on if they're early ones like this for Godzilla, you'll get a very accurate title and credits and company logos. And the later we get, the more likely we are to have different stars and different directors and
different
starring King Kong and Destroy All Monsters. And again, when you look at a title like that, you go, well, how again do you know that's really for Destroy All Monsters? And thankfully, there's good promotional records from almost every country, major country. Some of the things from Iran, I really had to do a lot of research and try to verify that was Destroy All Monsters. But the Destroy All Monsters from Italy, we got good records. We got magazine advertisements at the time. We've got movie studio promotions, and we know that's Destroy All Monsters. That's the official release title. It's available on video on that title. We were 100% sure that was for Destroy All Monsters.
All right.
So now,
so I've seen this title before, right? Like the Watang, and ever since I saw it like ages ago, it is an is it onomatopoeia? That's like the word in your head. So there's a sound when I read that goes in my brain. They go kang like that.
Watang, right?
Watang,
especially with the big exclamation point.
Exactly.
And this again is great. This shows that these people, one, didn't care what they put on the title or the images, and two, they did it totally without Toho's input or approval. Because obviously Toho would never approve. This is for Godzilla versus the Thing, so the top image of that is correct. But Toho obviously would never approve a lobby card that had camera in it. So this just shows, the distributor, again, I guess they're just cutting up whatever materials they have close by, and hey, let's put this on there. This looks great. And they did the same thing with Smog Monster. That is the correct title for Smog Monster. We know that is an actual ad for Smog Monster. But strangely enough, most people don't remember the scene that included Yongari. And then the Megalon there, just some great color combinations, as we all remember the Red Gigan.
I've definitely seen a Red Gigan figure that's probably emulating this lobby card. Oh, and some newer lobby cards. I actually was somewhat surprised to find that they were continuing to do these. I know these are from the 90s, but do they still make lobby cards?
This is one of the very last sets of lobby cards that was made for Toho. They made lobby sets for the Godzilla movies, The Destroyer, and then they actually made a lobby set for the first Mothra movie, and for Dai they did the first two Gamera movies got lobby sets. So you've got one card from each of those here. After that, it's just basically color stills that they use to advertise now. So
we got about 10 minutes left, and we're about to get into some of the most interesting stuff. Probably gonna have to zip through this a little bit, but let's talk about some press kits and showman's manuals.
Absolutely. This is in the US, this is where we get the publicity that they use to advertise everything. These are made for most countries. There are some Italian press kits and Spanish and Japanese, of course. I did, in the Italian press books that I have, none of the images in the actual press book show Gamera in the Godzilla movies. So somehow they still made it to the lobby cards and or posters. But this is where you get the great campaign ideas, and you know the phrases of "makes King Kong look like a midget." I mean, what a great tagline that was to use at that time, especially because King Kong had an almost at the same time re-release in the theaters. So while King Kong was going great in '56 in the theaters, how do we make Godzilla stand out? Well, we make him look like a midget. This is just a few more interesting and unique promotional ideas. I love this is from the King Kong versus Godzilla press kit, and they encourage you to have a monster ice cream streamer and get with your local ice cream shop and make a King Kong double monster ice cream soda sundae special. So why great idea. I'm not sure that any ice cream place actually ever did this, but there's actually one of the banners that they made that they wanted you to take over to your local Baskin Robbins, I guess, and get them to give you some free publicity by making a double monster ice cream.
I make those every time I watch King Kong versus Godzilla anyway.
As we all should now. This is from Mysterians. This again, go to schools. Great, let's go to our science teacher and have them talk about how Mysterians could be taken from real life. Even in '57, that seems to be a real stretch, but sure, why not ask your school to promote your science fiction movie for you? Go to your, as you see in that, go to your local library. So apparently there was a book out that one of the people that did some of the promotional artwork for Mysterians, who was in the Army, also had a book out about war, and so they wanted you to go to the library and promote his war book and the Mysterians. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm not sure how practical that was, or that anybody actually did it, but just out there wacky promotional ideas.
Yes.
And that's some of the artwork that he did. That's Lieutenant Colonel Robert Brigg. Artwork for the Mysterians. A couple of those images are great. This I love. This is from the U.S. Destroy All Monsters press book. And I love on the left, Know Your Monsters. And Reynold Brown, who's a very famous poster artist, did the artwork for this, and it's loosely based on the Japanese poster. But I look at those 4 images of the monsters.
Yes.
I can barely recognize any of them.
Unfortunately, Reynold Brown did not know his monsters.
So it's tough to imagine who those are actually supposed to be. And I love in the Wanted poster on the next side, you've got Gorosaurus taking the picture of what is actually Godzilla.
Yeah, true. Yes.
The prior image, and showing next to the picture that's supposed to represent, I thought it was supposed to represent Gorosaurus for that movie.
That's what I thought too.
So
it's weird that they would take the exact same artwork from the left-hand side of the page and just swap out the Gorosaurus for the Godzilla image. But anyway, yes, Destroy All Monsters had fantastic ideas for getting people into those seats. Let's see, on the Blu-ray release from Media Blasters of Destroy All Monsters, the first one that came out that had all the cool bonus features, Ed had his copies of the radio ads playing, and oh man, those were just the coolest thing to hear. That was it the Laugh-In announcer? It sounded like the same voice actor.
I don't think it was. But
no, man, it sounded just like him. Anyway, yes, everything from Destroy All Monsters was phenomenal in terms of their ideas.
Absolutely. And this is the greatest publicity piece ever created. This is the picture of it from the press book, the Ghidorah full color head mask.
Which I got when I went to the theater back in the 60s.
You claim that, but let's see it.
Yeah, well, it's with all my comics and cards that I could have retired on if my parents didn't throw them away. There
it is right there.
People have had
that is what you could actually get from the theater.
Yeah.
And it has, you can see the little steel plugs on it. It has a little rubber band on the back that, yes, you can actually attach this to your head and look out the eyes and go around.
Is it stiff cardboard or is it just paper that's going to wrap around your face anyway?
Very flexible paper.
That's fantastic. Oh yeah, and the coloring contest. Yeah.
These were one of the most popular things for Japanese publicity. Japanese didn't have a cool Ghidorah mask or anything, but for almost every movie, you had cool coloring contest. And fortunately, most of the images look a lot better than our gigantic artwork. I put that one in there just to show that we would use that too sometimes here in the States. But that should be for almost everything, I would think. Get kids to color pictures of the monsters and try to get them to the theater.
All right, so that does it for everything that we wanted to show you guys in terms of informational kind of graphics and any kind of cool imagery. Earlier in the Collectible Monsters episode, we did talk a little bit about finding posters. I am going to use this last 5 minutes to sort of blaze through this. Sean and Ed, just feel free to chime in if you think I'm overlooking anything. If you're looking online for posters from Japan, I would suggest Japanese sources like Yahoo Japan auctions or Mandarake. If you are looking for the word poster in Japanese, that's it right there. I would avoid, if you're looking for Japanese posters, I would definitely avoid places like eBay, Amazon, and All Poster, because DIY printing has pretty much ruined this for just being easy to find. You don't know what's legitimate unless you do a lot of research, right, Sean?
I agree that, and feel free. I think one of the next slides is going to show our Facebook group that we have for poster collecting. Feel free to ask me or Ed or somebody else. There are a lot of reprints that are advertised as originals, and
yes,
usually if it seems too good to be true, it most likely is too good to be true.
Yeah. And even I'll have to say, even nowadays, Yahoo Japan is not a very reliable source for posters any longer, because between the Kodansha reprints and the good old do-it-yourself reprinting, that vast majority of what you're seeing on Yahoo Japan these days is no longer original posters. You have to be super careful if you're going to buy anything from anyone online.
Absolutely.
Agree. Totally agree. So let's talk a little bit about originals versus reissues. The first rule that I would say with originals is, if you're looking at Japanese sources, always translate it. As Ed said, there's actually a lot of misidentification out there too. Rule of thumb, dollars, money, yen talks. So if it's a high price poster, probably a pretty good indication. What do you think about that, Sean?
Well, I see a lot of people on Yahoo Japan now recently. I see a lot of people using the 80s Godzilla paper collection originals and pricing them at $200 or $300 for one piece from that box set that you're holding up right there, which of course is ridiculous. That should be possibly the price for the entire collection, which is 60 to 70 pieces of paper. So I would just be careful. There was recently a couple of pieces that were sold where they actually tried to block out the fact that it had the 1984 copyright on the lower parts and tried to sell it as an original.
Yikes.
So they're getting a little bit trickier. It's very tough online. If you can't hold it in hand, it's just getting tougher and tougher.
So do your research. That's where we're going with this. Do your research. And as Sean mentioned, there are great resources out there. Sean is a great resource himself. He posts in some collectible groups about things that are happening online, like, oh, this auction just ended for this Godzilla poster and it went for this, just as sort of like a dog-earing the timestamp kind of thing. And then he also has the Kaiju movie monster movie poster fans group on Facebook as well, which I highly suggest joining if you are a poster fan or a collector or want to get into it. These are the two different covers for Sean's book. Oh man, we are at 1 minute away. So I think that the last thing I'll say is, if you can't get originals, like these guys were saying, there are lots of reissues out there. There's tons of them out there. The box set I was holding up.
Let's have the final comment be the box sets that are shown in the middle image here are fantastic. You'll see people taking the posters from these box sets and selling them for double or triple or more of what the entire box set are. And they're a box set, they're a DVD, and each one comes with usually a reproduction program, and then usually at least 1 or 2 or 3 posters in it. So they're a fantastic value. You find your favorite title. Every single Toho title was released in one of these box sets in the past couple of years. So if there's a great poster that you want, this is a really affordable way to at least get a copy of the image. Not an original, but you can at least get it. And these box sets are very inexpensive. You can find them used sometimes for under $20, but most of the time you're going to pay in the $20 to $30 range for one of the boxes. So they represent a really good value for people that just want to collect the image.
Yeah, I've seen people trying to sell these posters for an expensive price to try and make it seem like they're originals. But one of the clearest signs that you're buying a reprint from one of these boxes, aside from the fact that you should be able to see a different copyright date on it, is that they're always folded. You'll never find a rolled poster that came from one of these box sets. So when you see folds, you should immediately think in your mind that it's a good chance that this is a reprint.
Especially if it's folded into 8s, which is how they did it for these sets. So there are some old posters that are folded, usually they're in the quarter. So.
All right, now that's going to do it for our panel presentation. I would like to thank Sean Linkenback and Ed Godziszewski for joining me here today and asking me to be part of this. I hope you guys out there learned a lot. The last slide here is just this wall over here of my collection. You can see a whole bunch of posters, and I was just going to say all of them are reissues. So there are good reissues out there. Don't be afraid of them. But if you want originals, definitely hit up these guys for more information. Thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of Masterclass, Kaiju Masterclass. I believe the next panel is the Expo 70 panel with Matt Parmley and Stan Hyde. Thank you guys very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed it.